Okay, Paul.
Formed nearly 300 million years ago, the windsills rocky escarpments formed a perfect perch for Hadrian's Wall, not far away, and just the spot for a coastal castle, 20 miles from the Scottish border. In this castle, discovering what it takes to fortify it for the 21st century.
Brethren, I've now muted us all. I'm just going to wait another minute just in case there's anybody else coming in. I know it's Sunday night and people may be forgetful and go, oh, I want to get onto that. I'd much rather they've got on at the beginning. But as we're starting the recording, I will give the introduction before we start the meeting. And welcome you all to Lodge Hope of Karachi's 23rd Zoom meeting. And tonight, Lodge Hope of Karachi is fortunate enough to have Brother Gordon Michie, who's the Right Worship Master of Lodge Hope of Karachi, past Master of Lodge Earl Haig 1260, past Substitute Provincial Grand Master of Provincial Grand Lodge of Fife and Ross, and a member of the Grand Committee of the Grand Lodge of Scotland tonight to present a 75th anniversary of the end of the war victory over Japan. And the subject tonight is the Victoria Cross and Freemasonry. And as it's nearly 1903, I will now hand over to Brother Gordon to start his presentation. Good evening, Gordon.
Thank you very much, Brother Robert Clark, Immediate Past Master, and good evening, brethren. It's a great pleasure to be here, and this time on the other side of the fence, so to speak, as your speaker for this evening. The Victoria Cross in Freemasonry, brethren, the Victoria Cross, as we all are very well aware, is one of the nation's highest award for gallantry. Having served in Her Majesty's forces myself, I have seen many brave and courageous people firsthand. I've met many brave and courageous people. In 2018, I met a Victoria Cross holder for the first time, and it had a huge impact on me. And I remember speaking to him and how humble he was. That man was John Alexander Cruikshank, and he's currently the oldest living Victoria Cross holder. He's from Aberdeen, and I met him at an event that we held for Legion Scotland and Poppy Scotland in Aberdeen. And he was just such a humble person, and he was telling me a little bit about his story. And he was a Catalina pilot, and albeit his crew never made it back, he made it back with 72 bullet wounds. That just summed up the courage to me that he didn't think he'd done very much. And it gave me a little bit of a spur to research the Victoria Cross alongside my other passion, which, as many of you know, is Freemasonry. There are many people that have helped me produce this presentation this evening, and they will get due credit and acknowledgement as I go through. So, brethren, the Victoria Cross, as I said, was the highest award for gallantry, and it was first introduced on the 29th of January 1856. In the 164-year history of the Victoria Cross, there have been 1,356 awarded, and we believe nearly 10% of those were Freemasons under a variety of different constitutions. It's been awarded 1,356 times, and 3 individuals have won it 3 times, have won it twice. It all goes back to the Crimean War, Bern. Many of you will know the Crimean War, but it was a conflict that was fought in October 1853 to February 1856, in which Russia lost to an alliance made up of the Ottoman Empire, France, the United Kingdom and Sardinia. And the map there shows you pretty much where it was held. There's a couple of famous battles and imageries from that war that we all remember, particularly us as Scots. We've all heard of the Thin Red Line of the 93rd Sutherland Highlanders, and we've also heard of the charge of the Light Brigade. Devastation all round, Bern. But within that devastation, there was also care and pity and humanity. And that is pretty much emphasised in that lady, Florence Nightingale. She came to prominence while serving as a manager and a trainer of nurses during that war, Bern, in which she organised the care for the wounded soldiers. And she gave nursing a favourable reputation, and she became an icon of Victorian culture. And we've seen recently, Bern, that her name continues to live on during COVID-19 as the Nightingale hospitals have been named after them. There is a Masonic connection, however, as well, Bern. Her grandmother, she died at Tapton Hall in Sheffield. Tapton Hall today is the home of Sheffield Freemasonry. And there was a lodge named after her, Florence Nightingale Lodge, number 706, warranted on the 18th of June 1857. And one of the brothers who I know through the Internet Lodge, Florence Nightingale Lodge, is his mother lodge. It came about when William Howard Russell, who was the editor of the Times, the London Times, he asked the Irish-born journalist William Howard to accompany the Brigade of Guards when it left from Britain as part of the expeditionary forces bound for the East as the first war correspondent. And he's truly been acknowledged as the first war correspondent. He was in the thick of it. And I think he was a forerunner of everything that we've seen since. Correspondents, they were unarmed. They had their pen, their paper, and their cameras in later days. But I think he takes the credit of being the first one. And it was what he saw there when he came back that encouraged him to write about what he'd seen. He recognised that in France there was the Legion of Honour. The Legion of Honour was the highest French order of merit for the military, and that was established by Napoleon in 1802. And it's presented in the name of the President, and the Grand Master of the order is the President of France. And to me, when you look at the Legion d'Honour, I think there's a lot of Masonic symbolism, particularly when you look at side by side with the Pass Most Wise Jewel of the 18th degree of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite. I'm not putting them side by side, Bern, because they're totally different, but just maybe whoever was doing the designing of the Legion d'Honour may have had some Masonic connection. Also, I looked at what happens in the United States of America, and they've got the Medal of Honor. It was created in 1862 during the American Civil War. And again, it was a Freemason that instigated the Medal of Honor. So I think, again, there is a lovely tie-in there. So, Bren, I'd like to introduce into the discussion Captain Thomas Scobell, Royal Navy. He became a member of Parliament for Bath, and he made a formal proposal to the House of Commons. The words that he said were that a humble address be presented to Her Majesty to institute an order of merit to be bestowed upon persons serving in the Army or Navy for distinguished and prominent personal gallantry during the present war, and to which every grade and individual may be admissible. We were 50 years later than the Legion d'Honour, and Captain Scobell had seen gallantry in action, and he just felt it needed to be recognised. And as an MP, he had a voice. That voice was heard by Henry Pelham, the Duke of Newcastle, and he wrote to Prince Albert in 1854. And then in 1855, he also made a public speech in the House of Lords this time, desiring an award for gallantry. However, the Duke of Newcastle was to lose his role as the Secretary of War very quickly thereafter that speech was made. And his successor was the Earl of Dalhousie, more commonly known as Lord Panmure. So Bren, I introduced to you Foxmall Ramsay, Lord Panmure. So I would like to argue that it was down to a Freemason that the VC was introduced, because Foxmall followed up with Prince Albert the idea of this award. Foxmall was the Senior Grand Warden of the United Grand Lodge of England in 1832. He was a Deputy Grand Master in 1857, and more particularly for our Scottish Freemasons, he was a Grand Master Mason in 1867. He was also the Provincial Grand Master of the neighbouring province to where I am, here in Fife and Kinross, and he served as Provincial Grand Master of Forfarshire in 1852 to 1874. Prince Albert approached and spoke to Queen Victoria, and she took great interest in this. She wanted it to happen, and she looked at the design of the cross. And it wasn't just a case of her having a look at the drawings and the inscriptions. She got personally involved, and she selected one that was closely modelled on an existing campaign medal. And you can see there on the right, Brian, the Army Gold Cross from the Peninsular War that happened a few years before. The cross is inscribed for valour, and it was Queen Victoria that changed this from what was originally suggested for the brave, because she knows and she considered all her soldiers to be brave anyway. The original warrant for the Victoria Cross stated that the award should be ordained with a view to place all persons on a perfectly equal footing in relation to eligibility for the decoration, that neither rank, nor long service, nor wounds, nor any other circumstance or condition whatsoever, save the merit of conspicuous bravery, shall be held to establish a sufficient claim to the honour. There's also a suggestion in one of the books that I read, Brian, that the colours of the ribbon are potentially Masonic in nature. Masonic blue for the Navy, taken from the Craft Passmasters Jewel. It wasn't until 1918, on the formation of the Royal Air Force, Brian, that the ribbon was standardised as the original Army Crimson ribbon. It's always been made by Hancock's of London. Lord Panmure, the Secretary of War, he instructed Mr. Charles Frederick Hancock to prepare 106 specimens. Hancock's are still in London, and they are a jeweller of high repute. The book on the left still records all the VCs that they have made, and there has been no other supplier. And today they have got that unique distinction of being the supplier of the Victoria Cross. Urban myth, brethren, has always said that the medal was made from a Russian cannon from the Crimean War, and that's why I introduced the Crimean War earlier on. And the rumours always said it came from 2 Russian 18-pounder guns that had been captured. Many years later, as technology advanced, the gunmetal proved so hard that it began to crack the dies that Hancock's was using. And they then realised that the guns were Chinese in origin. So the first VC awarded, Brian, was on the 21st of June 1854 to Charles Davis Lucas. He was not a Freemason, Brian, but I thought I would introduce him as the first VC. It's interesting to note for us Scots, 5 out of the first 10 VCs issued were to Scottish soldiers. During the research into this and reading stuff within the archives of Poppy Scotland and Legion Scotland, these 4 books have been invaluable to help me pull things together. And this presentation wouldn't be possible without the information that Granville Angel, Philip May, Bob Cooper have done. These books are widely available, Brian, and I would encourage you, if you're interested in this presentation, inspires you to invest in them. Major General Edward Bell, he was the first Freemason to be awarded the Victoria Cross at the Battle of Alma in 1854. He was a member of the what became the Royal Welsh Fusiliers. and he was a member of a Canadian lodge. He also held the Legion, was awarded the Legion d'Honneur. The first Freemason invested with it was Rear Admiral Sir William Hewitt, and he was invested by Queen Victoria. And there's a story, Bern, that at that first investiture, Queen Victoria was on her horse, and she was leaning over to pin the VC on the recipients, and they made the pin double in the back because of the way that she was leaning over to ensure that they stayed in. The last recipient of the VC, Johnson Bahari, recently became a Freemason, and he is a member of the Queensmen's Lodge, which is a military lodge connected to his regiment, the Prince of Wales Royal Regiment. The Masonic Great War Project, Brian, has a huge amount of information about English Constitution Freemasons and who were awarded the VC during the Great War. And looking at that, you can see that Lodge Zetland had 6 recipients and the Navy Lodge had 15 recipients. Captain Swain, Brother Captain Swain, is currently the Provincial Grand Secretary of the Metropolitan Grand Lodge in London, and he's written a history of the Navy Lodge, and I would encourage you also to invest in that book. It tells the story of that final lodge that has got a huge history of military tradition and many royal members. Again, a presentation in itself. In 2018, the Freemasons in England wanted to commemorate the VCs, and Granville Angel, who I talked about, he commissioned a stone in 2016 to commemorate all the English Freemasons who were awarded the Victoria Cross. And outside Great Queen Street, you will now see the pavement. There are 64 on the pavement, and they include 6 of the VCs before breakfast, some of the most heroic VCs that were awarded at Gallipoli on the 25th of April. They included Brother Corporal Grimshaw from Langattock Lodge number 2547, Captain Richard Raymond Willis from Lodge St John and St Paul number 349, and Major Cuthbert Bromley in Victor Lodge number 2440. Brian, when I do come across these Brian who have received the VC, their citations are on the presentation, but purely for time, it's not my intention to read through them all. The other interesting VC that I feel for Masons is Alfred Toy. We've all heard of Toy Kenning and Spencer, Brian. We all wear many of us wear the regalia of Toy Kenning and Spencer. But were you aware that Alfred Toy was awarded the Victoria Cross at the age of 20 for his actions on the Western Front? As he later became known, Brigadier Toy joined Freemasonry in Grisha Lodge 1105 in Egypt in 1930. So, coming slightly closer to home, Brian, Scotland and the Victoria Cross. In the 164-year history of the EC, as I said, there's been 1,356 awarded. 166 Scottish-born recipients, roughly 12%, and 36 Scottish-born Masonic recipients that I can find. But the way that I'm interpreting a Scottish Masonic recipient, I've come up with the number 154. Different researchers and enthusiastic amateurs such as myself, we class them in different ways. So the way that I've classed a Scottish Masonic recipient of the VC is a brother who was a Freemason of a Scottish lodge, and we've found 47 holders. A Freemason who was a member of a Scottish regiment, and we've come across 3 holders. And a Freemason of Scottish origin, that his parents, or he classes himself as a Scotsman, and we've come across 4. Coming to my own province in particular, we have two Freemasons that were awarded the Victoria Cross. One from Lodge Union, number 250, and one from Elgin and Bruce, number 1077. Elgin and Bruce is, of course, the home of Brother Lord Elgin, our past Grand Master and past Grand Master Mason, him himself, a brave man who fought and was wounded in the Second World War. I would like to introduce you to David Hunter then. He was a corporal in the 1st and 5th Battalion, the Highland Light Infantry, and is a member of Lodge Union 250. He was awarded his VC for actions at Mouvray in France on the 17th of September 1918. He died February 1965. So he went on to have a long and fulfilling life. In his action, the story was told about the 7 heroes of Mouvray. On the 16th and 17th of September at Mouvray, Corporal Hunter was detailed to take on an advanced post which is established in shell holes close to the enemy. There was no opportunity for reconnoitring adjacent ground, and the following afternoon Corporal Hunter found that the enemy had established posts all around him, and he was isolated from his command position. However, he was determined to hold out, and despite being exceedingly short of food and water, he managed to maintain his position for over 48 hours until a counter-attack relieved him. He repelled frequent enemy attacks and also barrage from air attacks which came right across his post. There is a beautiful pipe tune, Bern, The 7 Heroes of Mouvray. Please Google it, sit back and listen to it. It is emotive. Moving on to civilian life, David Hunter returned to Dunfermline and he took up his old job as a miner at the Dean Colliery King's Seat. That's a photograph of the Dean Colliery there, Bern. And then he served as a postie in the West of Fife area for 30 years before finishing his working career as a storeman at Comrie Colliery. He was a well-known character in Dunfermline. In 1962, 2 years before his death, he was prepared to sell his VC as he was finding it increasingly difficult getting about, and his 27-year-old Morris car had recently failed its road test. His family were urging him to sell the VC, but in the end he decided that didn't turn out to be necessary, as a London car dealer provided a car on condition that he kept his Victoria Cross. His old regiment, the Highland Light Infantry, were also quite prepared to buy it, but he promised them he would leave it to them on his death. So he did die, Bern, and he died on the 14th of February 1965 at the age of 73 and buried in Dunfermline Cemetery. 2 other VC holders attended, but at the time it was an unmarked grave, and that to me is so sad that one of our greatest and most gallant heroes was buried in an unmarked grave. However, in 2004 that was rectified when people came together, and it was organised by the Royal Handling Fusiliers Association, and Mrs. Mary Fairbairn of Abercorn Memorials was charged to produce a headstone. And along with the Lodge Union Dunfermline, a plaque and a memorial stone was placed above their marked grave in August 2004. I first got to know the story of David Ferguson Hunter Byrne 2 years ago, when I was given the great honour to be at Dunfermline Athletic and be part of the commemorations of him. The club wanted to recognise him because he was a lifelong fan of the Pars, and outside the stadium they have put in a memorial bench, they've put a memorial plaque, and there is a memorial plinth. On that occasion, along with the Lord Lieutenant of Fife, Mr. Robert Balfour, I was one of the 2 speakers out with the family. The Mayor of Mouvray had came over, and it was a very moving occasion. His family members still talk of great fondness, particularly his grandson, who remembers him very well. But Dunfermline Athletic went above and beyond for the memory of David Hunter. So he's rightly remembered now in his hometown of Dunfermline. The other Fife brother is brother Adam Archibald. He was a sapper in the Royal Engineers. Originally joined the Durham Light Infantry, and he was a member of Elgin and Bruce, number 1077, and he affiliated to St James's Operative Lodge, number 97. He received his VC near Ors in France on the 4th of November, very close to the end of the war. He was a Leither. He was born in Leith, and he died in Leith. He was born in Balfour Street, and he worked for Stuart Granolithic. Now, I've tried to find out a little bit more about Stuart's Granolithic, Brian, and it seemed to have been a company established in Peterhead. And what it in effect made was pavements. And if you're ever going into on Queen Street, the National Gallery is there outside. The pavement, until very recently, still had Stuart Granolithic paving, and there was a block that is now being kept for perpetuity with the name Stuart's Granolithic on it. In 1890, the Building News claimed that the Granolithic had revolutionised footpath paving and had become the paving of the world. Adam Archibald also, in his younger days, he had been a keen footballer, and he played in a trial with St Bernard's. St Bernard's was quite a famous Edinburgh football team. They played at one of the grounds they played at was New Logie Green, which was a football ground in Powder Hall. Interestingly, Brian, for me, with the connection that I have working for Poppy Scotland in the Lady Hague Poppy Factory, the car park of our work is the ground of that football stadium. And for all you football buffs, here's your quiz question. What is the only ground to host the Scottish Cup final outside Glasgow? And yes, that was at New Logie Green. There was also another military tie, because the club was originally the club for the 3rd Edinburgh Rifle Volunteers. I said that he died right at the end of the war, and there's another connection with a more famous military man, Wilfred Owen. The end of October, the war was coming to a close, as we know now, and the British Army was preparing to make an assault on the Sambre Canal east of Lakitu. And amongst those present was the British war poet Wilfred Owen. We know Owen spent a lot of time in Edinburgh, and I like to think romantically that they possibly passed each other on Princes Street at some point. Owen, again, a very brave man, he had won the Military Cross. And he won that by capturing a German machine gun and scores of prisoners. But the connection with Owen and Archibald is when Owen was hit and killed, his men were attacking the canal that was never breached. And you can see from the map there, Brian, where the second Manchester were. And it was just after that engagement was to follow the engineers that Archibald was with to try to cross over. And as we now know from Archibald's citation, the casualties among the engineers ran high, and unfortunately it remained unbridged. But you can just imagine what they tried to achieve there. And you can see there is a photograph of the canal as it looks like today. And the citation for Sapper Archibald reads, Sapper Archibald was with a party building a floating bridge across the canal. He was foremost in the work under very heavy artillery barrage and machine gun fire. The latter was directed at him from a few yards distance while he was working on the cork floats. Nevertheless, he persevered in his task, and his example and efforts were such that the bridge, which was essential to the success of the operations, was very quickly completely. Immediately afterwards, Sapper Archibald collapsed from gas poisoning. He was initiated into Lodge Elgin and Bruce in March 1912. When I was doing some research about this on the VC online pages, someone asked me, did the Freemasons look to initiate VC holders because of their fame? And I would argue no. And the evidence is here for us all to see with Adam Archibald. He was already a Freemason. And I think some of the characters that we as Freemasons have lead to really good soldiers. The Lodge wanted to present a full set of Masonic regalia to Archibald, and they intended to make the presentation one evening, but his health due to the gassing was still so poor. And then Lord Elgin went across to Edinburgh and he presented his regalia, and then Brother Adam Archibald later affiliated to Lodge St James Operative Lodge number 97. I'm going to pick out a couple others VC holders, Brian, who were members of Scottish lodges that I think will be of interest to you. The next one is Robert Lloyd Lindsay, Lord Wantage. He ended up as a Brigadier General, but at the time as a captain in the Scots Fusiliers Guards, he won his VC at the Battle of Alma. As you can see, he went on to high rank in the United Grand Lodge of England. But the reason I picked him out, again, I think back in the Victorian and Edwardian days, Freemasons, we were more a part of civil society. We didn't shy away from that publicity, or we didn't shy away from getting our sleeves rolled up. A lot of that is beginning to be seen again more publicly with what's happened over the last 5-6 months with the COVID pandemic. But if we go back to the Franco-Prussian War, Brian, John Furley met with Lloyd Lindsay to ask him if he would help set up the British Red Cross Society in the UK. Furley had already been in touch with the International Committee of the Red Cross in Geneva over the desirability of founding a British National Red Cross Society, and that he knew that Lindsay was supportive of these goals. So a letter was published in the Times on the 22nd of July calling for a national society. He pledged £1,000 of his own money, and on the 4th of August he chaired a public meeting which resolved that a national society be formed. He continued to serve as the chairman of the National Society for Aid to the Sick and Wounded in War, which was then renamed the British Red Cross in 1905. And again, Brian, I just think it's lovely to think back that it was Freemasons that were at the heart of civic society 100 plus years ago. Lloyd Lindsay came from the family of the Earls of Crawford and Balcarras. Balcarras is a title in the Peerage of Scotland. It's been there for a long, long time. The title has been jointly held with the Earldom of Crawford, and the holder is also the hereditary clan chief of Clan Lindsay. Lodge Balcarras in Fife, they meet in Collinsborough in the grounds of the estates, and they wear the Lindsay tartan. And that's myself with the master of Lodge Balcarras at one of the installations a few years ago. The next brother I'd like to introduce is another well-known brother. He received his VC while a captain. He went on to become a Brigadier General. Again, he was from the Highland Light Infantry, and he was a member of Lodge St Andrews Military number 668 and Lodge Hamilton number 233. And he won his VC at Gadaref in Sudan. He was initiated into the craft on 15th of March 1893, and he was a joining member of this original Wingate Lodge while serving in the Sudan. He was involved in the Mahdist War, and that was a war of the late 19th century between the Mahdist Sudanese of the religious leader Muhammad Ahmad bin Abd Allah, who had proclaimed himself the Mahdi of Islam, the guided one, and the forces of the Khedivate of Egypt initially, and later the forces of Britain. And you can see here the Khedive Muhammad Tufik Pasha was a Freemason. Lord Ruthven, he was appointed Governor of South Australia, and he was proposed to become the Grand Master of the State's Grand Lodge, But Bernie was not eligible to become Grand Master because he wasn't a past master yet. So he joined the United Services Lodge in the 27th, number 27 on the 25th of April, and he was appointed Senior Warden. The following year, he became the Worshipful Master. And then 10 days before being installed Worshipful Master, he was installed Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of South Australia. There are lodges still named after the Earl of Gowrie in Australia. He was also appointed the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of New South Wales almost immediately on appointment as the state's governor. And he continued to serve as the Grand Master when he was appointed Governor General of Australia. And Gowrie Lodge 651 was named in his honour, and it was consecrated by himself. When this lodge was merged with the Lodge Leinster Marine number 2, the Lodge Gowrie of Canberra number 7515 was founded, and that still exists, Brian. So I now go on, Brian, just to introduce you to a few of the other Scottish Freemasonries VC holders. This is going to be a quick run through, because I think one of the lessons I've learned is that there's so much detail about each and every one of them, it's impossible to give them all due credit. And if anybody wants to take this information away or they wants this presentation in the future, I think it depends on the type of service background you have, and we can look at that. So if it's someone from the Black Watch you want to talk about, we then explore that further. So Corporal, he went on to become a Brigadier, Leslie Wilton Andrew. He was a member of St Andrew's Kilwinning, number 79, which was formerly number 481 in the roll of the Grand Lodge of Scotland. Again, he was from Leith. William Bapty, a major in the Royal Army Medical Corps, received his VC at Colenso in South Africa. He was born in Dumbarton, and he was a member of the Aldershot Army and Navy Lodge, number 1971. Colin Fraser Barron, a member of St Andrew's Lodge in Banff, received his VC at Passchendaele. William Bloomfield, a captain in the 2nd South African Mounted Brigade, VC awarded at Mlale in Tanganyika. He was born in Edinburgh. Walter Lorraine Brodie, a captain in the Highland Light Infantry, a member of Lodge Canongate Kilwinning number 2, and he received his VC on the 11th of the 11th, 14 at Beclair in Belgium, and he died at Mouvray. Thomas Cadell of Cockenzie, probably the most senior brother of the Grand Lodge of Scotland I can come across, as he was a sword bearer in 1911 to 1912. He was a colonel in the 2nd European Bengal Fusiliers. Thomas Caldwell, a sergeant in the Royal Scots Fusiliers, a member of St John 187 in Curluke. And very recently, Brian, Curluke came together and had a new memorial cairn placed in the centre of the village for the VC winners from that village. John Carmichael, a sergeant in North Staffordshire, a member of New Monkland Montrose in Airdrie. You can see here at the bottom right hand corner, Brian, there is a marked penny. And where you see a marked penny, the lodge have constituted a marked penny collection, and there's nearly 11 of them available to buy. John Christie, his parents were Scottish, but he was an English Freemason. William Hugh Clark Kennedy, a member of St Paul's Lodge, Montreal, Canada. Again, he was born in Dunskey, Wigtonshire. Neville Joseph Elmer Coggill, we've all seen the film Zulu Dawn, Brian. He was a member of the Royal Lodge of Friendship in Gibraltar and Lodge Southern Cross of the Scottish Constitution. He was a lieutenant in the 24th Regiment of Foot, and he won his VC at Buffalo River. And you can see there's a famous painting of him there with the colours of the regiment. Sir Garrett O'Muir Crea became the District Grand Master for Punjab. He was awarded his VC on the 22nd of April at Kamdaka in Afghanistan, and he became a general in the Indian Army. And he was a member of Lodge Kindred Hope, number 594 of the Scottish Constitution in Nuzaraba, although his mother lodge was of the Irish Constitution. Robert Cruikshank, a private in London, Scottish. His parents were Scottish. He had a Scottish father. His VC in Palestine in 1918. And you can see the photograph that interests me here, Brian, was Baden-Powell was present when Robert Cruikshank received his VC, and albeit Baden-Powell didn't become a Freemason, many argue that the Scout movement was based on Masonic principles. James Davis, or James Kelly, a member of the 42, the Black Watch, a member of Stirling Royal Arch, received his VC in Fort Rea in India. Alexander Edwards of the Sea Force, a member of Pitcairn up in Morayshire. William John English, 2nd Scottish Horse, won his VC at Vlakfontein in July 1901. Donald Farmer, sergeant at the time, but went on to become a lieutenant colonel in the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders, a member of Trafalgar, number 223 in Leith, again his VC out in South Africa. George Finletter of the Gordons, his VC at Dargai Heights. And I think total respect and credit is due to all VC holders, but more particularly, in my humble opinion, to those pipers who sounded the pibroch and inspired the men onwards. And I would encourage you to look up George Finletter and look at his citation, Brian. It is truly inspirational. Samuel Frickleton, a New Zealander of Scottish descent. He was born in Slamanan. John Gilroy Grant, again another New Zealander with Scottish parents, VC in Bancourt, France. William Henry Grimbleston, Company Sergeant Major in the King's Own Scottish Borderers. Again, an English Freemason, but of a proud Scottish regiment. Arthur Henderson of the Argyll and Southern Highlanders, member of lodges in India of Scottish descent and a Scottish regiment. Herbert Stephen Henderson, Bulawayo, is where he received his VC, Brian. He was from Govan or Hillhead, the records don't show. And he was a trooper in the Rhodesian Horse. James Huffman, 2nd Lieutenant in the Duke of Wellington's, a member of St David's Lodge, Berwick-upon-Tweed, but again he was born in Dunblane. Henry Knight, the King's Liverpool Regiment, again VC in South Africa. David Lauder, Lodge Royal Blues, number 399, a member of Royal Scots Fusiliers. John Jock McGregor, 2nd Canadian Mounted Rifles, member of Canadian Lodges, Bourne, Codder, near Nairn. Henry May, 1st Battalion, the Cameronians, the Scottish Rifles, Lodge Glasgow at Glasgow, number 441, April 1915. John Macaulay, the Scots Guards, Glasgow, Fountain, Notre Dame in France. He went on to become a Glasgow Bobby, and you can see them there in uniform. The picture I'm carrying, the wounded out. Again, the story of legend, Brian. Robert Macbeath, Seaforth Highlanders, Mount Vernon Lodge. He was born in Kinlochbervie. And George McIntosh, you can see him being presented with his VC by the King, a member of Lodge Gordon in Buckie. Matthew Fontaine Murray Meiklejohn, member of Edinburgh's, the Lodge of Edinburgh Mary's Chapel, his VC in Ellenslag, South Africa. Charles Melvin, a member of Lodge Airlie from the Black Watch. Cyrus Peck, Lieutenant Colonel in the Canadian Scottish, a member of Canadian Lodges, Prince Rupert and in Victoria. His VC awarded at Arras. Aris being very close to Vimy, which was the site of Canada's greatest triumphs and where the greatest amalgamation of Scottish soldiers ever in history were formed. James Douglas Pollock, Corporal, went on to become a captain in the Cameron Highlanders, a member of St Mary's Caledonian operative. Harry Sherwood Rankin, Royal Army Medical Corps. And again, like the musicians, Brian, to me, a medic who wins the VC for gallantry, for valour, you must read the citations. And he was a member of Motherkill winning Number Nothing. John Rains, member of St James's Operative Lodge. So they've got two VC holders, Adam Archibald and John Cranshaw Rains. William Reid, our first RAF VC holder. He won it over Dusseldorf in Germany, and he was a member of Lodge Robert Burns. Thomas Ricketts, Royal Newfoundland Regiment, a member of Lodge Tasker, a Scottish lodge out in Canada. Walter Potter Ritchie, again a musician, a drummer, a member of Lodge Govan Hill, and he won his VC at Beaumont Hamel. All these names of battles famous in their own right. The First Lord Roberts went on to become a Field Marshal, a member of Lodge Edinburgh Mary's Chapel and Lodge Canongate Kilwinning Number 2. Originally a member of the Bengal Artillery as a lieutenant when he was awarded his VC at Kedarganj in India. William Robertson, Lodge Union Number 332 in Glasgow, Sergeant Major in the Gordon Highlanders. George Mackenzie Sampson, our first naval Masonic one that we can find, and as you can see, his VC was with the blue, and he was awarded that on the 25th of April at Gallipoli. The 25th of April, as we now know, Brian, is the day that we commemorate Anzac Day. Robert Shanklin, the lieutenant in the 43rd Manitoba, he was a member of Lodge St Paul's, Number 204 in Ayr, and he awarded his VC at Passchendaele. Harcus Strachan from the Douglas Lodge in Borriston, his VC 20th of November at Cambrai. He died in Vancouver. Excuse me, Brian. Ross Tollerton, a private in the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders, a member of Lodge Irvine St Andrew. Ernest Beckwith Towse, a Major General in the Gordon Highlanders, member of Lodge Edinburgh Mary's Chapel. So again, Number 1 have got a couple of VCs in their history. And Field Marshal Sir George Stuart White. We're unsure if he truly was a Freemason because we cannot figure out which lodge he was a member of, but he was mentioned to be a Freemason in the Masonic Illustrated in 1900. Further research needs to happen on him, and I have been in touch with the Museum of the Gordon Highlanders to see what more information that they have on that man. Jack White, or Jacob Weiss, Lodge Montefiore, Lodge Number 753, member of the King's Own Royal Lancaster Regiment. John Augustus Wood, captain in the 20th Native Bombay Infantry, Lodge St Paul, a Scottish lodge out in India. So Brian, as I come to the end, there's many people that have helped me bring this together. Granville Angel, Bob Cooper, Stuart Donaldson, Philip May, Mark Smith of BBC Antiques Roadshow fame, Brian, Brother Captain Davis Spain, VC Online website, my own organisations, Bobby Scotland, Royal British Legion, Grand Lodge of Scotland, History and Heritage Group, information that I've sourced from United Grand Lodge of England, the Grand Lodge of Ireland, and Freemasonry Today magazine. The big question that is out there, Brian, are there other Scottish Masonic VC recipients out there that we do not know about? That is all our challenge to find out. I'm also doing some research and background on the Congressional Medal of Honour. And there is a list of Brian who were Masons and Congressional Medal of Honour winners. And I found out yesterday through an internet connection on the Congressional Medal of Honor Facebook page that a Medal of Honor winner was made a Mason not that long ago. And the chap who got in touch is now a member of the Lodge Hope of Karachi Facebook pages. He had the privilege of putting him through all his degrees. So, Brian, if you know of other Masonic VC recipients out there, I know I, for one, and Stuart Donaldson will be very interested in hearing from you. Brian, for valour, lest we forget. Thank you for listening.
Brethren, I think you will all agree that tonight's presentation by Gordon has been one of the most enlightening I've seen for a long while. And I wonder if you have any questions now, Brendan, for Gordon, to see if you can answer them. I know it's been a long 52 minutes, Gordon. See how you can do with it. See if there's any questions in the chat.
Tom, yeah, I know. I was due to be with you that day at Adam Archibald's house, but I got diverted elsewhere because I was rather hopeful, because that would have given me the ability to be at the 2 for the Fife Masonic recipients.
That's the only thing that's in the chat, Gordon. Well, if anybody else has got a question, I will unmute everyone. If anyone has any questions, if they'd like to put them to Gordon now.
Fantastic, Gordon. Well put together.
Well, thanks, Tom. I don't really think it's a type of subject that you have questions on. I think it's one of these things that becomes a passion, just like many of us have a passion for our craft. Having read so many citations now, having met and been involved at commemorations of VC holders, the words can't actually put it across what they mean to people, particularly people that have served. So I would just like to thank everyone who's here this evening for coming along. It's not a normal Tuesday evening Zoom meeting. It was an additional meeting that we've put on to be part of our commemorations of the 75th anniversary of the ending of the war. So, Brian, for your attendance, can I thank you for coming along? If you do have any information that can add to the research that in particular Stuart Donaldson's been doing over many years, and which I'm now trying to catch up with him on, I think we'd both be very, very pleased to hear that. And if you are interested in the VC Masonic tokens, John Muir from Ayrshire is certainly the man to track down on Facebook. I know they're beginning to become like hen's teeth, Brian, but there is a nice collection building up. And I think that John Muir in particular is very keen for those lodges that I've mentioned this evening that have a VC holder within their roll book. If they were wanting to commission a VC coin, there's ways that we can do that to support the lodge to do it, because there is a huge amount of collectors out there. So if you did hear your lodge mentioned this evening, Brian, please drop myself or Brother John Muir a note of interest, and John will talk you through what the potential is. Once again, Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, Gordon. Very, very well done.
Thank you
Thanks very much, Gordon.
Very, very enjoyable, Gordon. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it and reading it as you presented it.
Thanks,
Are
Archie.
we that later again? Can we go to one's website and watch it again?
Yeah, we'll be posting it on the Lodge YouTube channel. It'll go up there later on this evening, so it will be available.
Very interesting. Thank you very much.
No, thanks for joining us, Archie. Pleasure to see you.
Well researched, Gordon, once again. Thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks, David.
Gordon, I wonder if I could maybe just say something here.
Yep, please, Stuart.
Brother, trying to find out Victoria Cross holder that your lodge got it's very difficult. I found one in my lodge and Archie Chalmers gave me a lot of help. You don't know who's a Victoria Cross holder because, as Gordon already said, every one of them was very humble. Very, very few signed their name after their VC. What happened to me in Lodge 76 was I was looking at the balaclava, the thin red line, and I came across a name. Archie will remember this very, very well. And I found this name who was a private who shouldn't have been a member of the lodge. And we looked up, and through Archie's help, we found out it was a VC holder. I believe, and as I've already said to Gordon, there is many, many, many more VC holders who are Masons in Scotland. It's just a case of finding. Thanks, Gordon.
No, thanks, Stuart, and your help and support in this is very much appreciated. So as normal, Brian, I give our normal countdown for you to say your goodbyes to each other. For those who've not been with us anymore, that's basically, I try to count from 5 to 1. I then cease the recording and I end the presentation. And as was said earlier, it will be available on our YouTube channel. Brother Immediate Past Master.
Something there, Gord?
Thank you, Gordon. That was fascinating. Thanks very much.
Brethren, don't forget to join us for our next Zoom meeting on the number 24. It's coming Tuesday, and the information will be on our Facebook.
Right then, Brian, I'm going to 3, 2, 1. Good evening and thank you all. Good night. See you all on Tuesday. Good night.
Thank you.